Welcome to Never Too Late for Fitness Radio, bringing baby boomers proven strategies and innovative products for getting fit, staying fit, so you can live a longer, healthier, and happier life. Here's your host, best-selling author and fitness advocate, Phil Ferris.
This is Phil Ferris, and welcome to our show. Never Too Late for Fitness Radio provides answers and straight talk about fitness, nutrition, and healthy lifestyles for people over 50. During each show, we talk to real health and fitness experts, solving real problems with proven solutions you can apply in your day-to-day life. This episode is for people who want to build muscle, become stronger while avoiding injuries. Today, we'll learn about an exciting new approach to strength training and fitness that can make your body virtually bulletproof to injuries. My guest today is Dr. Thomas Mitchell, owner and clinic director of Chicago Institute for Health and Wellness, located in West Dundee, Illinois. Dr. Mitchell is a natural healthcare practitioner, certified chiropractic sports physician, chiropractic physician, a functional rehabilitative specialist, and is certified in applied kinesiology. Dr. Mitchell's practice includes functional medicine, clinical nutrition, as well as treatment of a variety of biomechanical, pain, and sports-related issues. Combining kinesiology skills with chiropractic expertise, Dr. Mitchell has a reputation of frequently being able to produce effective results where other practitioners have achieved only partial results. His watchwords, well-earned and thoroughly employed, have become results-driven healthcare. He is also a disciplined athlete and drug-free powerlifter who has broken the state and American records for powerlifting in his weight class. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Dr. Mitchell.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Now, you've created a very unique form of resistance training called Neuro-Stability training. Can you describe what it is and the types of people who benefit from it?
Sure. The way I see it is that everyone from every generation can actually benefit from this type of training, from younger kids who have movement disorders to athletes who are looking to get better and create different movement patterns, to the geriatric population and reducing fall risk. So neurostabilization training is an idea or a training methodology which allows for the user or the person that's training to create what's called proprioceptive input, or almost kind of like a souped up balance. It's the way our brains hold our bodies in space against gravity, to utilize the muscles that stabilize the joints while they're prime movers. The muscles that are actually supposed to be doing the work can focus on doing the work. So the idea or the way I put it is that anything that you can do correctly on an unstable or a dynamically unstable surface, the more dynamically stable you become. So really that crosses all generations, and it crosses all genders, and it crosses all disciplines in terms of training.
Okay. Now, most people don't associate resistance training with a visit to the chiropractor. Why is resistance training so important to a person's health and wellness? And how is this neurostability training different from some of the other more traditional methods of resistance training?
That's a great question. Well, resistance training is absolutely critical in terms of building muscle and increasing metabolism, bone density. The resistance training is a natural and normal part of our existence, and everyone actually should be doing some type of resistance training, no matter whatever your exercise preference is. Resistance training should be involved. In terms of visit to the chiropractor, well, I'm a chiropractor, and I've been doing resistance training for now 30 years out of my 42 on this planet, and so it's just something that I've gotten good at, and I've been focused on for quite a long time. It's not so much that neurostabilization training or neurostability training is different than other training methods, other resistance training methods. It's because you can use the same exercises, you can use the same weights, you can use the same apparatus. what you're doing is you're just creating this dynamically unstable surface that allows your body to coordinate and control those muscles, those stabilizing muscles, and those main movers to allow you to get stronger, be less apt for injury, and in the long run, healthier, have a healthier body.
Okay. Now maybe you can describe a little bit how you went about developing neuro-stability training and what motivated you to do so.
Sure. It really came about as I was learning neuroanatomy and neurophysiology. And when I was in school, when I was in chiropractic school, our second semester is all head and neck. It's all the brain and the spinal cord and how the nervous system works. And I actually I was in a research study. I was 21 years old, or I was 22 years old, and I was in a research study where they were doing free MRIs. And that MRI, they would adjust you, and they do an MRI, and then they adjust you, and then do a post MRI. So I went in there as a strapping young lad, and I went to my first MRI, and I was going to be in this research study, and they pulled me out of the MRI tube and said, "Hey, you have multiple disc herniations in your lower back, and you have Schmorl's nodes, which is a herniation into the end plates, which fractured the end plates of some of my vertebrae." I had never had pain, so I really was flabbergasted, I guess is the best way to put it. And so I started to try to figure out how I could continue to do what I was doing. And I was a power lifter at the time, and I'm still powerlifting. How can I continue to do what I'm doing, but reduce my incidence for, I didn't want to have a bad back. I didn't want to be, by the time I was 42, I didn't want to have have back surgery or injections or walk around hunched over. So I really started to dig in to find out what the true stabilizers were, how to make it stronger. And then I just started to develop it over time. And some of it was a little bit trial and error. And then when I really understood functional neuro physiology and neuroanatomy, and then it really just clicked for me. And so in that time, because it ended up breaking a world record in powerlifting, and it wasn't because it was just because it was truly because of consistency over time without being injured. I was able to continue to progress.
Now you talk about the stabilizer muscles. Can you clarify what that is and how they're different from other muscles?
Sure. So all joints, if you think of like your shoulder, you have your rotator cuff muscles. Well, everybody calls it rotator cuff. I blow my rotator cuff. Well, it's not a rotator cuff. It's 4 different muscles, and they all do different things in the shoulder to keep the ball in socket. It's kind of a ball and socket joint, to keep the ball inside the socket correctly as you move that shoulder around. So if one pulls from the top and one pulls from this side and one pulls from that side, and at the end of the day, as they're all pulling together and doing what they're supposed to do, it keeps the joint centrally located. So then when I go to lift my arm, it's really my deltoid that can actually do the work. Well, my deltoid's a much bigger and stronger muscle than those little rotator cuff muscles that are just tweaking where the ball sits inside the socket. So those stabilizer muscles are the really critical portion of how to create normal function around a joint. And then the big muscles are the ones that really move the weight or allow you to pick something up or allow you to do something. So where people seem to really get in trouble is that they're getting stronger, but they're not getting more stable. And those little muscles are trying to put in the work that the big muscles are supposed to be doing. And then those are the ones that actually tear and then leads to injuries, leads to surgeries, leads to inactivity, because the number one reason people stop training, exercising, growing, getting healthy is they get injured and they can't do it anymore. And I didn't want that for myself. So I kind of developed what I do to keep that away.
So if I get this right, I have my major muscles that do the real heavy lifting, so to speak, and they're the ones that get really engaged, and those are the ones that get focused on when we think of building muscles. It's the bicep, it's the quadriceps, it's the lats. And we think about those muscles because they're the show muscles, but they're also the muscles that give us the most power and strength. But
right.
the stabilizers allow them to function in a dynamic environment. So that as we move, which we do, we live in a 360-degree world, those muscles have to be strong enough to support the bigger muscles in movement, especially under load. Is that a reasonable explanation?
Yeah, that's a great explanation. Yeah, it's the ones that allow those muscles to pull in the direction they're supposed to pull, all muscles pull, right? But it allows those muscles to pull in the correct direction so that you can add actually a load to those prime movers, is what I call them. Is those big muscles, the lats, the pecs, the quads, the glutes. Those are your prime movers. I think about it like this: if you can never be strong until you're stable. So if you're treading water in the middle of a pool and a shark attacks you, and you want to push that shark off of you, or something's attacking you and you want to push that thing off of you, how well does that work? You can be big and strong, you can have huge muscles, but you have no control, or there's no stability around you to allow you to get good leverage. So that's what happens in the gym. You're just not in a pool. Those little muscles aren't working great, and those big muscles are trying to move heavy weights, and those two things don't coexist very well.
Okay. So how would someone know if neurostability training was right for them?
That's a good question. In a strange way, by breathing, because we do live in a world of coronal planes and sagittal planes and all these fancy terms, but we live in a dynamically unstable world. Like our bodies contort and do things in different ways. If I have a couple of physical therapists in my office, and I talk to them, and they teach how to do core strengthening. And so you suck in your belly button and you bear down and you do this, but in reality, if there's a child falling off a ladder, you're not going to suck in your stomach before you go to grab that child so they don't get hurt. So you have to be able to involuntarily control your core and control those muscles without trying to think about it. So everyone's doing that. Everyone is having to pick up things off the ground and tie their shoes and keep from falling over and throw a football 50 yards or throw a tap a balloon into the air for your granddaughter. Whatever it is, that's part of the world we live in. So when we talk about who could use this, it truly is. It's a little tiny children that are just trying to coordinate their bodies better, to the geriatric population that's really trying not to fall over, get hurt, and quite honestly, that leads to a lot of bad things in that age group. And it's everyone in the middle, because we live in space and our bodies live in space, and we have to coordinate our bodies in space against gravity. And that's what this helps train.
So it's like, if you want to move better, this training would help you.
Oh, tremendously. Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can describe what a typical workout might look like. And because we're on, it's audio as opposed to video. And so when most people think they go to the gym to do strength training, they think of, I'm going to do a bench press, I'm going to do a lat pull down, I'm going to do squats, I'm going to do deadlifts. And so they can get a visualization of what those exercises look like with weights or machines. What might a workout look like? And what are some of the exercises might look like that would help them appreciate what is going on and what they would go through if they decided to participate in this kind of a program?
Yeah, a typical workout could look very, very similar to the one you just described, if that's what you enjoy doing. But the whole idea is, or the whole concept is to continue to perform those exercises, whatever they may be, correctly on a dynamically unstable surface. So something like a Bosu ball, which is a kind of a half ball with a platform underneath it or on top of it, indo boards, physio balls, stability balls. Most people are, they call them yoga balls, things like that. But by doing let's say you're doing a bicep curl, well, being able to do a bicep curl while sitting on that, then sitting on it with one foot and sitting it out with, doing a curl with only one weight. So there's no counterbalance. So you really have to stabilize your body to be able to continue to perform that activity, or doing that curl, kneeling on that ball. So there's really no stable contact to the ground. Your feet aren't touching the ground at all. But there's a natural progression, and it never gets stale because you can always make things more dynamic and harder and more complicated and more functional every time you go work out. And does it take time? It certainly takes time. We don't start people in my office, in our clinic. We don't start people kneeling on a stability ball. We don't start people. Something that the average person can do and anyone can do is stand on one foot. And then when you stand on one foot, are you falling over? Are you wobbly? Are you really stay stable? And if you do, then close your eyes. And then how stable are you there? So there's always a place to start. You can start anyone there. I have a woman that has MS, and we've started her on this, and she's now actually walking with canes, and she came in a wheelchair. But it's, you can start anywhere and anywhere, and you could progress just by going, how do I make this more dynamically unstable, but I have to perform this activity correctly? And that's kind of a typical workout. It really matches any workout that you can have that's out there. It's just the surface in which you're able to perform that workout on.
So by changing the surface that you're doing the exercise on, to a dynamically unstable surface, what does that do to the body? How is it? It seems like it's not necessarily. If I'm doing bicep curls on a BOSU ball, I'm not necessarily making the biceps work harder, but I'm making the rest of the body work harder to perform the exercise. Is the purpose to train the entire body while you're exercising, as opposed to isolating one muscle?
Well, that's quite a good point. And theoretically or intuitively, that might actually seem to be the case. But actually, what happens is, yes, you're training the whole body because let's say you're standing on a BOSU ball, so you have to stabilize from the foot and the ankle and the knee and the hip, and now the core has to stabilize, and then and all the way up to the bicep. But what actually happens is, because those stabilizing muscles are working on stability, now your prime mover is actually quite isolated. So now that bicep is actually getting more of the load and getting more of the work because it doesn't have the accessory muscles. The accessory muscles are doing what the accessory muscles are supposed to do, while that prime mover, that bicep, is now having to take on that load. So it's quite interesting that intuitively you'd think that, but when you actually go and do it, those specific muscles get isolated quite a bit. And while your whole body is dynamically having to keep you upright. So it's a very hard workout, but it's really a cool way your body performs and isolates those muscles. It's a neat thing, actually.
What's one of the most common exercises that, let's say, an intermediate person would use, not just the very beginning, but that the people might be identified with and say, wow, that would be challenging?
Easy one. Do a push-up, right? Okay. And most people can do a push-up, but now do a push-up with your hands on a BOSU ball or an indo board. An indo board is a kind of this, I won't try to explain it over the radio, but a BOSU ball, which is a dynamically unstable surface, 360 degrees of dynamic instability. So you put your hands on that and you do a push-up and you go, wow, that's harder. But then you go, okay, well then, but I can do this. So then you go to 1 foot on the ground as opposed to 2 feet on the ground. So you have one less contact to the ground. And then you go, well, I can now, after time, you can do that as well. And then you put your feet on a stability ball. So now your hands are on this BOSU ball, which is dynamically unstable. Your feet are on this stability ball, which is dynamically unstable. So there's no contact to the ground that's stable at all, but you're still able to do those push-ups. And yeah, you start by going, I can do 10 push-ups, and on a BOSU ball, I can do 5. If I put my feet on the stability ball, I can do 1. But then once your body gets healthier and once your body gets stronger and once your body gets stable, that 10 push-ups that you could do on the ground, you go back to the ground and now you're doing 20 and 25 and 30 because now your body's actually working correctly. So you're doing all of this work on an unstable surface, then you go to a stable surface and boy, your strength gains go through the roof.
Okay. So can you give us some examples of results that people have gotten doing this kind of training? Everything from, if you're talking about an athlete, anything from adding 5 to 10 miles an hour on their fastball, arm strength, power in terms of baseball hitting a golf ball much straighter because it's really forcing you to stay in your lane or in your posture as you swing a golf club, to that young woman who has MS, who literally was in a wheelchair and 230 pounds, and we did some nutrition work with her, and we did the stability training with her, and she hadn't walked in years. I would say within 6 months, she's using arm canes and she's getting around, and she does not live by herself, but her husband works a full-time job where she is getting around her house completely on her own with no wheelchair. So the results are outstanding. And then it's not even so much the results, it's the ability to do things that you never thought you could do without being injured, the being able to press more weight or do more things, and your body is strong enough that you didn't hurt your shoulder, you didn't hurt your elbow, you didn't hurt your knee, your knee didn't twist when you took that step, because everything is a lot more solid. Okay, it's kind of, as I mentioned early in the introduction, it's kind of a way of bulletproofing your body from injury. Because
I like that. Yep, it's bulletproofing your body from injury. And now you could still get hit by a bus that hurts.
Right.
Having said that, it's bulletproofing your body from injury. Yeah.
So what's the biggest misconception people may have about this program?
It's interesting because I don't know what misconception they can have other than it's hard, and it maybe your misconception a little bit of when you're thinking, well, maybe it's not isolating the muscle well enough, or maybe I can't have the gains that I could have because I can't use the same weights because I'm not stable. So that's probably it. So I'm a power lifter. I do a lot of very, very heavy lifting, and I don't know of another power lifter that does this, truthfully, because they probably have it in their head that, you have to have the 500 pounds on the bar or the 300 pounds or whatever it is to get bigger and to get stronger. But what their misconception is, they can't go any heavier than their supporting muscles will allow. And they're not training those supporting muscles at all. So what happens is they get injured and they don't go anywhere. So I guess that's the biggest misconception. I read an article by Poliquin. I don't know if you know Charles Poliquin, and most people do. He's an amazing innovator in the terms in fitness. And he put out an article about how balance training doesn't work, and it doesn't lead to gains, actually. And then I just this was years ago, I had a little email chat with him to say, you should read about neuroplasticity and how your brain adapts to what's underneath you and what's around you, so that you can still make those gains. So there's, this is not written in stone. I am really applying neurobiology, neurobiomechanics. But am I 100% correct? I don't know, but it sure works, and it sure works for me, and it sure works for my patients, and it sure works for a lot of athletes that I see, and it sure it certainly prevents injury, and it certainly increases the ability for people to do things they never thought they could do.
It's interesting, as you're talking about it, I was thinking, why people don't adapt new programs or new innovations in order to get to the next level. And for a lot of athletes, it means if I take on something else to strengthen a weakness, my stabilizing muscles, that means I'm going to initially have to do less. And sometimes the ego gets involved and saying, well, I can't do as much. And that's frustrating. And I get impatient doing the things I need to do to get to the next level. And if I don't do those things, I'll never get to the next level. And, there's one of those things that they're the little muscles, the stabilizers that you don't think about. How do you get them engaged? How do you strengthen them? Because when you do your big lifts of anything, the bigger muscles are going to take the lion's share of the effort. So, I can think of some of the people in our gym, the fact that you say, well, you may have to do some regressions in order to get the progressions of an exercise would be frustrating for them because they're conditioned to do gains all the time. So I can see that might be where people say, well, I got to take a step back in order to take 2 steps forward.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Phil, to cut you off. It was, and you do see that a lot. You definitely see it in the powerlifting world quite a bit. But any coach, if you're a golfer and you build all these bad habits, so you can never shoot below 100, and you go to a golf pro, he's got to break you down before they start to even instill new habits. Sometimes you have to burn down half the house to rebuild it so that it's built correctly. That's kind of how it works. Any time you're trying to advance past what your status quo is, you at least in from a physical standpoint, you can have physical limitations that need to be corrected before you can go anywhere further. And when you try to push those limits past what your body's able to do, that's called an injury. And although it's good for my business, it's not good for my patients, and it's not good for myself, and it's not good for my kids. So there is an ego that gets involved. But I'll tell you, if you're doing 50 pounds and I knock you down to 25 pounds, but 2 months later you're doing 75 pounds, there's proof in that pudding, as they say.
Right. So many of my listeners are 50 and over, and they haven't been doing resistance training in a while or ever. Should they consider including neuro-stability training in their fitness routine? And if so, how would you recommend they start incorporating it into what they do?
Yeah, great. Great question. The answer is absolutely. They should start to incorporate it into their fitness routine. The next step to that is they would do that actually, as you know, in terms of being over 50, or I think the age is 55, but one of the number one concomitants to death is falling over from the age of 55 on. It's not all these big bad diseases we think of. These people, in the geriatric population, they fall and they hurt themselves, and that leads to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And before you know it, there's bad things that are occurring. And it just becomes this never ending spiral downward. So at the very least, it's to prevent fall and to reduce fall risk. But the next step to that is, how would they start that? Very simply, can you stand on one foot? Can you create some balance? Now, proprioception is kind of a souped up. Proprioception is the way our brain controls our body. It's perceivably how our body's in space against gravity, and how our brain knows where we are and how to function. But balance is a good start to that. So you just really start with, you stand on one foot, can you balance? And if you can, close your eyes. Then what happens? And if you can do that and you can close your eyes, you can stay stable. Now grab something and pick it up, or grab something and lift it up, or grab something and swing a club, or, just some type of activity that you can do that causes you to kind of be unbalanced. And as you train and get better at it, things, you get better and you can achieve more than you could the day before, and you just keep working at it.
Okay. And is there any, general guidelines you would suggest in terms of how they should progress and how fast they should progress?
Good question. I have not created those guidelines because everyone's so different. There Their control of their body is different. Were they an athlete? Were they never an athlete? Those are two different bodies. Are they very deconditioned, or are they very conditioned, or are they kind of somewhere in the middle? What's their nutrition like? How well does their brain function? All of those things are really important, but you'll know when you start how quickly you can progress, because, can you stand on one foot without falling over? The answer is yes. Move to the next step. And then you take it to the line in which you're able to continue you're still able to do the activity and stay balanced, but it's really hard. And then the next day it's not so hard anymore. And then you get to use, instead of going from 2 feet, it's to 1 foot, and things like that. But so there isn't a guideline, because everybody is so uniquely different that I don't have I can't say this is exactly how you would do that. But as you start to do it, you'll start to know your body pretty well.
Okay, so this would force you to become more aware of the mind-muscle connection as you do activities, which is an important part of training in any sport, whether you're training for an athletic event or just training for the game of life of running with your grandkids or gardening.
Yeah, literally training to kneel down and pull that weed or dig that hole, or literally it's training in the game of life. Yeah, it's everything we do, from tying our shoes to brushing our teeth to, all of those things take coordinated effort of our brains and our bodies, and this forces our bodies and our brains to function better.
So what's the most frequent comment you hear from clients after they start doing neurostability training for a while?
Yeah, that's a good question. The most frequent, I would say one of the most, first, it's hard. This is hard. They don't, that's the initial comment. Oh boy, this is hard. And then it's, I feel stronger. That is, across the board, I feel stronger. I feel better, and I feel stronger. And not stronger that they can lift 500 pounds, but stronger that they can do things in their everyday life without having to think about it, without having to be hesitant about it, without having to be in a position in which they're not really sure if they can do it. Their limitations go away. So that the number one thing is, I just feel stronger and I feel better.
Great. Well, if people want to connect with you to get more information about you and neurostability training or the Chicago Institute for Health and Wellness, where should they go?
Our website is simply chicagohealthandwellness.com, and everything they would ever need to contact me, and they can do that directly, is on that website. There's my bio on there. There's information about our office, our clinic, what we do, how we do things. I wrote a book a few years ago called The Mitchell Principles, and this is one of the chapters in it, which kind of outlines how I think about how to be a healthy person. And that's free to download on our website, so they can always, download that book and read the book. And I'm always happy to talk to anyone that's willing to that wants to get better, that wants to get healthier, that wants to take away the limitations that we think age gives us, or people tell us our limitations. So again, the website is chicagohealthandwellness.com, and anything they'd ever need to have to get in touch with us is right there.
Well, thank you. I know that I've frequented the website. There's a lot of great information, and I want to thank you for taking the time to share your insights into fitness and into neurostability, and I'm very excited about the possibilities of how I can incorporate this into my fitness routine. So thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks, Phil. I really appreciate the time to talk.
You've been listening to Never Too Late for Fitness Radio, hosted by Phil Ferris. To learn more about the guests or resources on our show today, or to listen to past episodes, go to nevertoolateforfitness.com.